displaying the glory of God's creation by exploring America one park at a time. Welcome to Parking Full Time with Big Dave, the park's professor. 10th hole. The par and distance are at the top of the screen. This hole plays directly across a deep and steep ravine that we saw a little of on the front 9 and are going to see a lot of on the back 9. We're going to jump down to the bottom of the ravine and then we're going to head up to the basket. The basket is higher than the tee and therefore this hole does play somewhat uphill. This hole is tight, although there are tighter holes on this course. The two distances I'm giving you at the top of the screen are due to the fact that most holes on this course have two possible basket positions, a long position and a short position. On this video clip, the basket's in the long position, and I'll try to remember to tell you which position the basket is in if there's a big difference. I do want to welcome you back to Parking Full Time. I am Big Dave, the park's professor. Here's the 10th basket, and there's the view back down to the tee from behind the basket. The 11th hole is another very long hole. It plays slightly downhill, but it's still pretty long. The fairway also has a bit of a cross slope from right to left, similar to a couple of the holes like number 7 and number 8 that we saw on the front 9. But the real bear on this hole is the tightness. This is one of the tightest holes on this course, and there's seemingly an uncountable number of trees that you have to get around that could possibly ricochet your disc. The basket is in the long position, so we are going to see all 420 feet of this hole. We are at Richmond Hill Park. We are on the north side of Asheville, North Carolina, and therefore we are in western North Carolina. This is one of the most popular and most highly rated courses in western North Carolina. There's the view back down the fairway to the tee. The 12th hole is one of the shortest and easiest holes on the back 9, and therefore it's kind of a breather hole among all of the long and hard holes in this part of the course. It is a slight dogleg left, but this hole is open enough and short enough that a good throw with a slight right to left disc flight should set up a birdie opportunity. For a course that is as heavily wooded and persistently heavily wooded as this course is, it actually has a decent amount of variety. There's the view back to the tee. We're back to the longer and harder holes for hole number 13. This hole seems a little more open than it is because there are some holes in the tree canopy, but in fact there are a large number of large trees in order to deal with here. Also, there are a lot of shrubs in the understory, and so the rough is indeed very rough. This hole does play moderately downhill, and so there is that to ease your pain, but nevertheless, this is a pretty hard hole. Now, the last 5 holes have been recently rerouted. The new 14th tee is behind the basket and downhill to the right. That steep ravine we saw back on number 10 is off to the right here, and the 14th tee is down at the bottom of that ravine. There's the view back up the fairway. The 14th hole is the last truly short hole on this course. There are 2 lines of play. There's a direct line of play that we're going to walk here, and that line is pretty tight. There's also another possible line out to the left that would require a sweeping left to right disc flight. So you get to choose which line you want to go with here. The basket on this video clip is in the short position. The long position is up those stairs to the right, and the long position is a decent bit harder than the short position. The 15th hole continues gradually uphill along the ravine bottom. It's another long and tight hole, although there are tighter holes on this course. This hole is a slight dogleg right, and therefore a slight left to right disc flight is going to be needed to get up here and get close to the basket. But the real challenge on this hole is just now starting to come into view. There's this super steep dirt hill right in front of the basket. And so even if you get up within 50 feet of the basket, you're going to have probably the toughest putt on this course in order to make a birdie. We're going to jump up to the top of the hill. This may be the hardest hole relative to par on this course, and 3 really is a pretty good score here. The 16th hole is the most open hole on this course, and it parallels the park entrance road, which is off to the left. There are 2 possible lines of play. There's the direct line that we're going to walk, and that line is pretty tight and it has a decently low ceiling. There's also another line out to the left that would require a sweeping left to right disc flight, and that line is wider but of course also longer. Given the length of this hole, if you want to have a good chance at birdie, you're probably going to have to risk the more direct line if you want to get that done. That's the parking lot downhill to the left there. And there's the view back to the tee from behind the basket. The last 2 holes play back and forth across the same ravine that we've been playing around for the entire back 9. The 17th hole plays steeply downhill into the ravine. It's fairly short for a par 4. The basket is in the long position on this video clip. But it's also really tight. And so you might think, given the shortness and given the downhill, that maybe this should be a par 3. And maybe it should. But it's really fun to try to make an eagle on this hole with a really good throw. There's the view back up the hill towards the tee. The 18th and final hole plays the opposite direction across the ravine, and it plays back up the hill that we just came down. We're standing on the tee right now. We're going to jump across the ravine and then head up to the basket. This hole has a wider fairway than many of the other holes on this course, but it's still north of 300 feet for a par 3, and it is still pretty steeply uphill. So this hole is still a real handful for a finishing hole. I do want to thank you for watching. Parking full time would not be anything without the people who watch. I realize that every day, and I thank you every day. This is one of the most popular and most highly rated courses in Western North Carolina, and for good reason. This course is not super long, but it is pretty tight. There's a lot of elevation. You have to learn which lines to throw along, and you have to hit those lines in order to score well here. And so I really like this course. There's the view back downhill behind the 18th basket. That is the end of the course. Have a great afternoon, take care, and Lord bless.